What is going on, everyone? It's Justin here, and in continuation of my day in life video where I showed you kind of what I do for a living, or broke it down at least, and kind of what the average day is like, I thought I would do a video of 10 things that I've been trying to learn this year. So I'm guessing for the most part, everyone has been at home for the past couple months, and with that brought a lot of extra time. There was no traveling or anything, which was a huge chunk of what was last year. So instead of just like watching Netflix, which I did do a little bit of, I decided to try to pick up some new skills that I otherwise would not have learned in a regular year, because I would always have an excuse of not having time and just wanting to work on other things. So whether it is cooking, trying to do a podcast, learning 3ds Max and do like architecture renderings because that is stuff that I love, and running the clothing brand that I bought into last year, a website, and just stuff that is all over the place, some things that I may have committed to a little bit more than others, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about 10 things that I plan to learn this year. I'm also going to talk about how the Omen 15 contributes to our podcast setup in the studio and also with designs of the clothing company. It not only has a minimal and lightweight design, but it also has great specs with the AMD Ryzen 7 4800H mobile processor. So we're going to talk about that more in the video, and a huge thanks to AMD and Omen for sponsoring this video. And if you guys would like to win some HP gear, just make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like on this video, and leave a comment down below about your favorite tip, and I'll announce a winner when this video hits 3,000 likes. So the first thing is cooking, and that is probably what I've been the worst at over the past couple years, because even though I had been moved out since 2017 and got a new kitchen last year for investment/content purposes, I hadn't used it for about 6 months, and the stove and everything still had like price tags and stuff on it. And truth is, I just never really got around to it because I was either too busy or just didn't even know where to start. So recently I started buying Fresh Prep, where they end up sorting out your meals for you and the different ingredients, but don't cook them. And from there, I was able to follow the steps and learn how to cook a bit better. So far, some of the meals I've been able to cook better than others, but if you're like me and never thought you'd be able to know how to cook, being one of those skills that is a little bit difficult to pick up a little bit later, then I feel like that is a good starting point. So here's a bit of B-roll to go with it. So another thing that I also tried to learn was make my own coffee, and even though like making coffee at home is not as cheap as I expected, there's like a lot of different starting parts to it, I feel like the coffee quality is better, and it's almost like a bit of an art form that I'm still trying to figure out and see if that's something that I want to do moving forward. So the next two things I've been trying to learn have been like side projects that might not necessarily make a lot of money, but have been a lot of fun and a learning experience that I've been trying to learn as quickly as possible. So the first one, as you can probably tell, is my podcast set. I launched a podcast a couple weeks ago. We are about 10 episodes in and have had some great guests on, both some friends who have been on the same trips, just sitting right here, 3 of us talking, or also some over Zoom, which has been a bit of a technical hurdle. So when it comes to podcasting, of course you want to have some stuff that you want to talk about. So in my case, it is business, tech, style, fashion, and just like how like business surrounds all of these topics, and also some stories to tell to add some personality. So on that side of things, we've had a ton of episodes to film so far, about 2 every weekend, and we've been uploading them both to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, the website, and everything. So if you guys want to go ahead and check that out, I would really appreciate it if you also went and left a rating over on iTunes. But it's actually been going quite well. I'm surprised that people actually like it or have listened to it. And it is just one of those projects where there's nothing to lose. But in terms of the list of things that we had to kind of figure out or learn was, beyond the topic, the equipment and setup. So I picked this desk off of Wayfair. The equipment was one that my friend already had, and some of which Rode sent over. We just plug everything into this right here and record to an SD card. And obviously you don't have to start with anything this complicated. This is definitely on the higher end. But the next step is distribution, and that includes setting up a website. In my case, I use Simplecast because it just looks very nice. And we also use Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and both of which were surprisingly approved very fast. From there, I also have some help running the Instagram page and the style by adding quotes, cut downs, and snippets that go onto YouTube as well. And I would almost say that we reverse engineered the podcast from the video side over to the audio side, because obviously I make YouTube videos for a living, so we wanted to make sure the video quality was good. We do have some early changes that we already want to make, including like secondary camera angles, and I heard some people mention that that would be a great addition, but That is going to be a little bit later. It just makes things more complicated. Storage is going to get a bit larger and more hectic. And of course, the cost of getting a secondary camera that is up to par with the quality of the main Red. So one of the tools that we have in the office is the Omen 15 computer, and this right here is run by the AMD Ryzen 7 4800H mobile processor, and that is an 8-core processor. And for any student out there who is looking for something that is good for productivity, graphics work, and also gaming, this is able to deliver the performance in all those categories, including gaming, with the NVIDIA 1660 Ti processor that is built in as well. For like an in-office use, the way we have the podcast set up for live stream guests is through Zoom. So I'll go ahead and just have the computer in front of the camera, and I'll have the webcam attached to it or even use a built-in one. And from there, we're able to stream the guests and have the interface attached to that, and everything is run essentially by the computer, with the camera also recording a stream separately. Especially when we're trying to connect with guests around the world in a limited period of time, like a 30 to 45 minute window, we need a computer that is reliable and ensure that it won't fail us in the middle of a stream, because that would just be bad for everyone. So this computer, as one that lives in the studio, is very powerful and is able to handle all of that. And most importantly, it also ventilates quite nicely with the Tempest cooling technology. So the fan sound is not too loud, because that can translate to the podcast audio itself, even though we're a couple feet away. That is all thanks to the 3-sided venting and 5-way airflow. And even though that is nice in the podcast situation when it comes to audio, it is especially going to be important when you're putting a heavy load in graphics and gaming. The other side project that I've spent a lot of time working on over the past couple months is the company that I co-own and purchased into last year, and that is a Canadian brand, Dangerfield. It was actually founded in 2011, and we're working on the Canadian trademark for Dangerfield clothing, and maybe even expanding into retail stores down the road, but we are already in quite a few Canadian retailers for our overcoats and stuff. But online, you guys have been seeing the hoodie that I'm wearing, and this is actually a custom spec'd hoodie based on what I prefer. So you've been seeing me wear it a lot. It is comfortable, good quality. And if you guys want 15% off, I've got a coupon code down below for anything on the site. But we also make like card holders and leather goods. And the big intention and what has been the most fun is the branding process. So figuring out like the Instagram feed, the photos, the kind of customer experience. The website was completely rebuilt recently in Shopify, and it was actually my first time using Shopify. And also the packaging, which actually took quite a few months thanks to the virus. And this packaging is a 2-color, looks a little bit like an Oreo, and has a nice like texture to it and print on the front. So all the details that I would normally apply to anything that I want to work on has been applied here, and we look forward to bringing you like more clothing and essentials such as hoodies, different colors, maybe even collaborations down the road. This right here is a box for the toiletry case, which is one of my favorite products and I've been using since I bought into the company. And I just got to say, like, in terms of what I learned from this is that retail business and tangible goods are extremely hard, especially coming from marketing, where I would essentially buy all my video equipment and use it for many years down the road, and we would get paid to do like advertisements and mentions. Whereas now we're looking at a product where we have a large overhead, we have to purchase the goods first, put money up front, and hope that it sells and try to strategize that. Hopefully learn a little bit more about like Facebook ads and Google ads. These are all things that are stuff that I'm learning for essentially the first time and trying to apply my business and content experience to since buying into a company like this that makes clothing. So like I mentioned, the podcast and the clothing pretty much makes me no money. If anything, it costs me time and money, but hopefully in the future, it'll be something that we can build a little bit. And it's just a nice break from making YouTube videos 24/7. I also use the Omen 15 computer for reviewing some of the designs of the clothing that is about to come out. We're still trying to like play around with different looks of hoodies while trying to keep it very simple. So I've got to be able to run Photoshop and stuff while I'm on the go or in the studio. And with the graphics capabilities and having like different layers and files to access, it is important to have that power, and this processor and graphics combination can handle that. For accessing files very fast, the NVMe SSD storage is also very important, and Photoshop also loves to use a ton of RAM. Beyond the specs though, as someone who is very picky about design, this one definitely gets my approval. It is very minimal, so you can take it anywhere, and I just like the fact that it has like this matte gray look, but also feels very lightweight. The edges are nicely rounded off, and the computer is also nice and thin. A lot of times gaming computers are going to be very fat and they just don't look that good. But in this case, you have something that is like a good hybrid between a lot of ventilation, but also a minimal and kind of productive design. A lot of times you don't want a computer that just attracts too much attention, but you still want it to look good. The keyboard is nice to use, the display is 144 Hz, so if you're gaming that will be especially handy, but just as like an overall computer that I can recommend to students out there or people who want to use a computer for productivity and gaming, I'm going to drop a link to everything down below, and once again a huge thanks to them for sponsoring this video. The next thing I've also been trying to improve, of course, is the videos themselves. And whether it is a content side, spending some more time planning, the B-roll, trying out stuff like probe lenses, and the editing, is all things that I really want to professionally develop during the time that we don't have to travel as much. The problem with traveling a lot last year was that I was constantly fighting to keep on schedule, and by the time I finished a video, it was time to go to the next place. So by having some time to professionally develop and improve the content and SEO has been huge. Here are some of the things that we've been working on. So first off, it is the editing workflow. Whether it's the organization in Notion, the notes per video, the podcast, and working with proper teams to ensure everything is on schedule, that has been a huge factor in the planning process, which results in hopefully better content. The next thing is also just taking action a little bit quicker. I used to spend a lot of time thinking about videos instead of actually creating them. So now we are trying to create videos at a faster pace and also ramp up the setup makeover series, which has been very popular over the past couple years. Next thing was also testing out some new equipment, so playing with like the lighting setup, the way we use like our easy rig because some of the videos are very shaky, Trevor, and we've also been switching up different lenses and using probe lenses, which are more specific but have brought very nice cinematic quality that takes a lot of effort for just very short bits of footage but is always worth it. I have also tried to play around with the scripting of the video, so instead of just sitting down and talking for the entire video, some portions are scripted voiceovers which bring a variety of both natural and just casual speaking like I am right now, as well as voiceovers that are more direct and concise information. B-roll has always been something that I struggle with, so I've also really tried to just add more variety, speed, and pace of the videos to increase the watch time and engagement, because that is my metric to show whether you guys like the videos or not, and so far in the past month or so, it has really worked. The next thing was kind of fixing the back end of the business. And what I mean by that is that over the years, I had started YouTube as a hobby and doing pretty much every single thing on my own. But as things got a little bit bigger, or when I went full-time in 2018, I started hiring members, and it just didn't really operate like a company. It was more of like a hobby with someone helping out. So a lot of the software and practices that we use were relatively old-fashioned and primitive and may have worked by myself, but for organization's sake, it just wasn't that good. So first thing was accounting and switching over to QuickBooks last year, learning how to get a little bit better, even though I don't really spend as much time on it. But the next thing that has really been beneficial is Notion. So Notion is a platform that allows you to organize notes, set up templates, and from there you're able to set things up such as like YouTube videos, a podcast template, put elements in, track the status of videos, sponsors, links, descriptions. And the reason why we finally switched to Notion is some very smart people that I follow, including Ali Abdal, lives by Notion, and I had been using Apple Notes all the way up till now. I actually have 700 notes that are all spread out in one file, just all over the place. And even though I really like using Apple Notes, as things get a little bit bigger and you hit like 10 to 20 episodes of the podcast, everything is just very disorganized. So we switched to Notion and have loved it since. There's just so much to learn about it, and I'm still very new. Next up is on the production and editing side of things, and that includes DaVinci Resolve and After Effects. Beginning with DaVinci Resolve, this is a program that you can either get for free to try out, but if you want to really take advantage of it and have it use the GPU of your computer, it costs $400. So because we do shoot on Red in 6K raw files and do a lot of grading in our footage, whether it is for like the regular tech videos, which are a quicker grade, or the Porsche video that took a bit more time, being able to use DaVinci Resolve is a good skill to have because it is much more complex, detailed, and you have much more control over your footage compared to Final Cut, even though it does get the job done. So DaVinci Resolve in the beginning is not the easiest thing to use. You have different nodes and different parameters, but I've been trying to get a bit better at it, and even though I don't plan to use it for every video, for select projects, it can make a lot of sense and give you a competitive edge. After Effects is another thing that I feel like is a great skill to have, and as someone who knows a little bit about Photoshop but not the most, This is software that I think is essentially limitless. You can do anything in After Effects, animation, graphics, and all that stuff. And I'm just scratching the surface and learning from using templates. But recently I was in a creator effects pack with a lot of great creators, and some of the elements included After Effects templates for like tour visuals, and I even bought the Ezra Cohen pack. So even though I have used After Effects like 5 years ago and was never good at it, I decided to pick it up once again and try to learn it for real. Something else that I've also been spending some time on lately is Masterclass. And I was one of those people who was hesitant to pay $200 to $300 for an online course. I'm just like very skeptical because there are so many out there. And the reason why I decided to get it was just because I heard great things about it, and the video quality is amazing. So beyond just like the course content itself and the fact that they're constantly adding new ones, being able to enjoy the video quality and the production behind it is a huge plus. And after listening to a few courses, including the Chris Voss one or the Bob Iger one about like Disney and how he became CEO of the company and the acquisitions they made, I feel like a lot of the information is like, it teaches you about the philosophy of things, but it doesn't really go into like extreme details and scenarios, but obviously that depends on each course. Some of them are a little bit boring, some of them do go more into the case studies. I heard the Gordon Ramsay one is very good, but there's just a lot of content that I have to catch up on. But I would say early impressions, if there is still like the promotion where you buy one and get one free, splitting it with your friend is gonna be the best option. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I also want to thank you for all the reception on the recent day in my life video, where I just tried to be extremely honest and also give some opinions and advice, anything that I can offer. Obviously, I'm no expert. I'm trying to figure out my path in the business world and career myself. But I do feel like after having a decade of experience on the YouTube side and just learning how to build a business from when I was a teenager, I try to provide as much of that insight in an honest forum, not only in my YouTube videos, but also in a video like this, where I just talk about what I've been trying to improve in the kind of stay-at-home period, which has now started to end. The reason why I really felt like I wanted to make this is because I'm usually someone who doesn't really change that much. If I find something that I like to do or a way of doing things, even if it needs a lot of improvement, I end up just like putting it aside and doing things the same way I was used to. I never cooked, I never tried to branch out of YouTube, and although things are working and I wanted to focus on what was working at a time, I feel like it is important to keep your mind open and try new things, and that is what I've really tried to prioritize in the past couple months.